At the beginning of the 20th century, Roald Amundsen led the first expedition through uncharted territories to the South Pole. He explored what no one had before, and he made a difference. Today's barren wastes, however, aren't something that you can physically explore. Today, the icy and uncharted land is the wild world of data. Data is, at its most basic, information. Data controls everything that we do, and it is only with data that we can solve society's greatest challenges. And most importantly, so much data about data itself is unknown. Anyone at any experience level can be a part of the world of data. You do not need a college degree. So today, I am calling you on an adventure. An adventure not of thrill, but of discovery. So one of the many applications of data is in medicine. Now, currently, one of my uncles has a blocked artery, and he is considering whether to get heart bypass surgery or balloon angioplasty. Now, both of these options are very dangerous, yet they are critical. However, my uncle is an Indian male, and unfortunately, there simply isn't very much data on how effective these procedures are on people like him. Now, the issue here isn't that there aren't enough Indians to collect data from. There are over 2.75 million Indians in the United States alone. The issue here is that no one has bothered to collect this data. Data itself, even in its most raw form, can make a difference, and you can be the one to make that difference. The world of data is very much unexplored, and there are countless discoveries and adventures to be had. Now, another of the many applications of data is in social justice. Now, social justice may seem like the one field where technology has absolutely no role, but technology is flexible, and data specifically can be used anywhere if you know how. Now, one of the best examples of this is the way data is used in social good. Data is critical in guiding policy. Now, a policy is a set of rules and guidelines meant to promote a specific idea. Data can tell us which of these policies are most effective. You could use data to figure out for yourself how to vote and how to think. When Roald Amundsen and his crew explored Antarctica over a century ago, they weren't sure what they would find. They may have not found anything, but what they found was a treasure trove. In today's world, data is worth exploring. You could use the power of data to change humanity for the better. So today, we are going to go over my adventures in data, but then we'll go over yours. So I have lived in Stanford, California my entire life. Now, California is famous for its earthquakes, but we have seen a surge in a much more devastating natural disaster in recent years: wildfires. Now, wildfires are so dangerous because of their spontaneity. Currently, scientists can predict how wildfires are likely to spread, but they cannot predict how likely they are to start. This has always frustrated me, so I decided to make a model which could predict where wildfires are likely to start. Now, whenever you're doing any project in technology, the first step is always collecting data. Now, for this project, my data came from the National Interagency Fire Center. And I know that this data is reliable for three main reasons. First, the National Interagency Fire Center is a government organization, and this is a very reliable source. Second, there are over 200,000 records in this data set, so I am confident that it was compiled painstakingly and accurately. And finally, for each wildfire in this data set, there are over 100 little tidbits of information about it, such as location, date, and time. So I am confident not only that it was compiled accurately, but that it was collected accurately in the first place. So we know that this data is reliable, but what does this data actually contain? Well, a data set is a list of entries. Each entry in our data set corresponds to a wildfire, and each of these wildfires has several attributes. Now, these attributes are the little tidbits of information we discussed earlier. This data set contains several key attributes, such as location, date, and time. Now, with these attributes, we can figure out more attributes, such as temperature, dew point, and wind strength. So with this, we have our data. We have the information that we need in order to determine where wildfires start, but we still need to actually use this information. And this is really a problem of extrapolation. We have our data, and we are trying to find patterns in that data, patterns which we hope will tell us more about what causes wildfires. And the most effective method for finding patterns in a data set is deep learning, which operates using a neural network. I'm going to be honest. A neural network is needlessly complicated, and we don't really need to know how it works. Basically, a neural network just takes in some inputs, which are our attributes, and it spits out a number. And the number for us is going to represent the probability of a wildfire in that area. Again, the inner workings of a neural network are very complicated, but what we are trying to do is find a neural network which is our answer. Find a neural network which we can feed in data about a location and receive out the probability of a wildfire in that location. So a neural network is really what we are trying to construct, but the method to construct it is deep learning. Deep learning is the process of taking data and creating a neural network which represents that data. Now, neural networks are very difficult to understand. However, deep learning is even more so. However, we almost never have to worry about deep learning. Instead, we use libraries. Now, a library is a collection of code written by someone else. And deep learning is very difficult, but libraries are very easy to use. Very easy to use. So a library is going to do the entire process of deep learning for us. So instead of worrying about neural networks, we only need to worry about libraries. So libraries are a very convenient way of simply taking your data and going straight to the answer, which is our neural network. With libraries, you don't have to muck around with the actual process of deep learning. And libraries are the sole reason why I believe data is accessible to all. Because with libraries, you do not need to be an experienced coder. With the help of libraries, anyone can participate in the world of data. However, to participate in the world of data, you need to participate in a way that you are passionate about. I am passionate about wildfires, but maybe you aren't. So when you are doing a project, the first step is choosing something that you are passionate about. I urge you to actually do something, to actually make a difference in the field of your passion. So maybe your passion isn't wildfires, and that's okay. Maybe your passion is ecology. Maybe you want to predict how many plants are going to be in a specific area. Maybe you want to know what factors influence plant growth. Well, the first step would be collecting data. Perhaps you find data on how much plant growth there is in a specific area. Perhaps you count the factors that lead to that plant growth, and then you could compile a data set. So for example, you could take a specific location, count the number of plants in that area, and then describe some factors for that location. Maybe some of your attributes will be the climate, or maybe it would be the latitude. So these attributes will allow you to compile a data set. Then you have your data, and the next step is to apply deep learning. But again, you are not going to actually apply deep learning. Instead, you let a library do it for you. Now, one example of such a library is TensorFlow Keras. So this would allow you to completely short-circuit all of the complicated things. Instead, you only need to worry about the data. So with this type of framework, you could absolutely do something and start on it today. So as you are coming home from this conference, I urge you to think of something you are passionate about and to think, what can you do to make a difference with that field? I am passionate about wildfires, so I am collecting data and trying to make a difference in predicting wildfires. What are you passionate about? Well, maybe it's not wildfires or ecology. Maybe you're passionate in preventing car crashes. I'm sorry, that analogy was a little bit of a stretch. But let's say you want to prevent car crashes. Well, the first step is knowing what causes car crashes. So the first step to that is, of course, going to be collecting data. Maybe you have data on what car crashes have occurred. And maybe you know little bits of information about each car crash. Maybe you know the speed limit, the time of day, and the location. Then with these factors, you could again feed your data set into a library. This library would allow you to instantly generate your answer. You have your data, you skip all of the complicated steps, and you go straight to the answer with the help of libraries. And again, this is another example of a project you could start on today. And I urge you to start on it today. I urge you to think of something you want to do and to do it. Now, finally, let's consider one more example. Maybe you want to predict social media spreading. Maybe you want to know what factors make social media so attractive. Well, tell me, what is the first step? Data. Exactly. The first step is collecting data. The first step is compiling a data set. And maybe your data set will consist of countries. Maybe each country or region will represent how much social media usage there is in that country. Then you could collect information on each of these countries, such as the political climate, the population density, and so on. So now you have your data set. Then what's the next step? You just plug it into a library. You let the library do all of the work for you. So when you have your data set, you can simply use a library to get directly to your answer. Now, the purpose of this speech isn't to tell you what I have done with data. The purpose of this speech is to make you realize that you can do whatever you want with data. The first step in doing something is deciding what to do. So again, I urge you to today decide on something you want to do and then do it. The world of data is very much unexplored. Indeed, your adventure awaits. Thank you.